Hi, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about my journey and struggle to learn English. It wasn't always easy, but it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Learning English wasn't something I could just do in a day. It was a process, and it started from zero. Let me tell you how it all began. When I first started learning English, I felt lost. I was surrounded by people who spoke the language with ease, and here I was, struggling to even form a sentence. I didn't know where to start. I couldn't even understand simple conversations. It felt like everyone else was so much ahead of me, and I was stuck. I remember feeling frustrated every time I tried to speak. My words would jumble together, and I felt embarrassed. I would watch movies in English and hear the characters speak so clearly, with confidence, but when I tried to repeat what I heard, it never came out the way I wanted. I would forget words or say things in the wrong order. It felt like I was speaking a different language altogether. At the time, I didn't know how to get past this. I felt like I was too far behind and that learning English would take forever. But then I realized something important. Everyone starts somewhere. Nobody is born knowing how to speak any language. We all begin with nothing, and with practice, we learn. That thought gave me hope. It made me understand that the only way to improve was to keep going, no matter how difficult it seemed. I started by learning simple words. I remember writing them down on small pieces of paper and sticking them around my room. Hello, please, thank you. These simple words were my starting point. I would look at them every day and repeat them aloud slowly. They started to feel more natural. It wasn't much, but it was something, and something was better than nothing. The next step was learning short sentences. I didn't know where to start, so I would repeat sentences from movies or books. How are you? My name is Ariel. I like English. These sentences became part of my daily routine. I would practice saying them over and over until they became second nature. At first, it was hard to remember them, but after repeating them many times, they stuck in my mind. But even with these small steps, I still felt unsure when it came to speaking. The thought of having a real conversation with someone in English terrified me. What if I said something wrong? What if they didn't understand me? The fear of making mistakes held me back for a long time. But one day, I had to face it. I remember the first time I spoke in English outside of my practice. I was talking to a friend, and I had to use the words I had learned. My heart was racing. I tried to speak slowly and clearly, but I was still afraid I'd mess up. And guess what? I made mistakes. I forgot words, mixed up tenses, and even said things that didn't sound quite right. But you know what? My friend didn't laugh. They listened, understood me, and even helped me when I needed it. That moment was a turning point for me. I realized that making mistakes wasn't the end. It was just part of the process. The next challenge was listening. It's one thing to speak, but it's another to understand what others are saying. I remember trying to listen to conversations in English, but it felt like the words were flying by so fast I couldn't keep up. But I kept practicing. I started with slow videos, and then moved on to faster ones. Little by little, I started to pick up more and more words. At first, I could only catch a few words, but over time, I started to understand full sentences. Listening helped me improve my speaking as well. I could hear how the words were used in real conversations, and that made it easier for me to use them myself. I also began to use English every day. I would think in English, even if it was just for a few minutes. I would talk to myself, describe things around me, and practice what I had learned. The more I used the language, the more comfortable I became. Soon, it became a habit. Speaking and thinking in English didn't feel so hard anymore. One of the best pieces of advice I received was to not be afraid of making mistakes. Mistakes are a part of learning. They are actually one of the best ways to learn. The more I accepted that mistakes were okay, the more I started to speak freely. I didn't worry about perfect grammar anymore. Instead, I focused on getting my message across, and that made a huge difference in my confidence. Looking back, I can see how far I've come. Learning English hasn't been easy, but it has been worth it. I still make mistakes, but I don't mind anymore. Speaking English has opened up so many opportunities for me. I can connect with people from all over the world, read books, watch movies, and even work in English. It's amazing to see how much I've grown. If you're just starting your journey to learn English, I want to tell you this: don't give up. It might seem hard at first, but the more you practice, the easier it gets. Start with simple words, make mistakes, and keep going. It's all part of the process. You're not alone. Everyone who speaks English started exactly where you are, and if I can do it, so can you. For more tips on improving your English, check out my other videos on the channel. I've shared the methods that helped me, and I believe they can help you too. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and never stop learning. Now, I want to talk about how finding the right teacher changed everything for me. I remember when I first started learning English, I was unsure about where to go for help. There are so many books, apps, and websites out there, but none of them seemed to connect with me. I needed a teacher who would understand my struggles and guide me through the process. When I first looked for an English teacher, I didn't know exactly what I needed. I wanted someone who could explain everything clearly, but I also needed someone who would make learning fun. I didn't want to just memorize rules and vocabulary. I wanted to practice speaking, make mistakes, and get better with each lesson. After a few tries with different teachers, I found one who really made a difference. This teacher didn't just focus on grammar or vocabulary. Instead, they focused on helping me speak. They understood that language is about communication, not perfection. They gave me exercises that felt like real conversations, not just classroom lessons. We spoke about real-life situations like ordering food at a restaurant or talking to a friend about my day. It was nothing too complicated, but it made me feel like I was learning something I could actually use. One of the best things my teacher did was to teach me how to learn by immersion. I didn't just memorize vocabulary, I used it in conversations. I didn't have to wait until I knew everything perfectly to start speaking. My teacher encouraged me to speak from the very beginning, even if I didn't know all the words or the correct grammar. The focus was on communication. Just speak, they said. Even if it's wrong, speak. That advice helped me so much. I stopped worrying about making mistakes and I just started talking. At first, it wasn't easy. I felt shy, and every time I opened my mouth, I was afraid of saying something wrong. But over time, I realized that the mistakes weren't the problem. The fear of making mistakes was. As soon as I stopped being afraid, I became more confident. I started speaking without worrying about every little mistake. My teacher was always supportive, never making me feel bad for errors. They helped me correct them, but they also praised my effort. That encouragement made me keep going, even on days when I felt frustrated. One lesson that stuck with me was when my teacher told me, "You can't be afraid of making mistakes because mistakes are your best teachers." At first, I didn't believe it, but as I kept making mistakes and learning from them, I saw how true it was. Every time I said something wrong, I understood what I needed to fix, and that made me a better speaker. The way my teacher helped me build confidence was simple but powerful. They asked me to talk about myself, to tell them about my day. They would say, "What did you do?" At first, I only had a few simple sentences to use, but I said them over and over. Then, little by little, I added more each time I spoke. I felt a little more confident. Another important part of learning was that my teacher didn't just focus on textbook English. They introduced me to real-world English, how people actually speak in everyday situations. We practiced things like asking for directions, making small talk, and telling stories. It was nothing fancy, but these small, practical conversations helped me get comfortable with speaking. They made me feel like I was actually using the language, not just studying it. Finding the right teacher also meant that I had someone to hold me accountable. I knew I had to do my best because I didn't want to let them down. They encouraged me to practice outside of our lessons too. Speak to your friends in English, they would say. Use English at home, even for a few minutes. And I did. I started practicing English with my family, even if it was just a short greeting. It felt awkward at first, but over time, it became easier. If you're just starting to learn English, I want to tell you, don't be afraid to find the right teacher for you. A good teacher doesn't just teach you English, they help you find your confidence. A great teacher understands that you don't have to be perfect to learn. They guide you through the ups and downs and make learning fun. If you haven't found the right teacher yet, keep looking. The right person can make all the difference. And for those of you who can't have a teacher in person, don't worry. You can find online teachers or language exchange partners. There are many resources available to help you improve your speaking skills, and you don't have to go through it alone. In fact, you can even find teachers who specialize in speaking practice, just like my teacher did for me. You just have to start. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Start now. On my channel, I share more tips about finding good resources and practicing English on your own. If you want to improve your speaking skills, I have a lot of helpful videos that can guide you, so check them out. Remember, it all starts with a teacher who understands your needs and believes in your ability to learn. And with time and practice, you'll see how much you can achieve. I want to talk about one of the biggest challenges I faced: overcoming my fear and shyness when speaking English. At the start of my journey, I had the words. I knew the grammar, but speaking felt impossible. I was too shy to say anything, and when I did speak, I was terrified that people wouldn't understand me. My heart would race, and I would start to sweat whenever I had to speak in front of anyone. The thought of making mistakes scared me. I was afraid that people would laugh at me or think I wasn't good enough. This fear held me back for a long time. I would listen to others speak English so fluently, and I would think, I will never be as good as them. I was my own biggest critic, and every mistake felt like a huge failure. But the truth is, I wasn't alone. Everyone who learns a new language faces the same fear. Whether you're learning English or any other language, it's normal to feel nervous. The key is to face that fear and push through it, even when it feels hard. I remember the first time I spoke English outside of practice. I was sitting with a friend, and we were talking about something simple, what we did that day. I wanted to participate, but the words were stuck. My mind went blank. I couldn't think of anything to say. I was scared that my sentence wouldn't make sense, but I decided to try. I took a deep breath and said, I went to the market today. It felt like my voice was shaking, but my friend smiled and said, Great. What did you buy? That simple moment made me realize something important. People want to understand you. They don't expect you to speak perfectly, and they're not going to laugh at you for making mistakes. Most people are patient, and they just want to hear you try. After that conversation, I felt a little more confident. I knew I had to practice, but it was a start. As time went on, I kept putting myself in situations where I had to speak. I didn't want to just sit back and wait for the perfect moment. I wanted to practice, and practice meant making mistakes. I began to speak to my friends in English, even when I wasn't sure if I was saying everything correctly. I would say, I like movies, or I want to eat pizza. Just simple sentences that I knew would be understood. It felt awkward at first, but the more I did it, the less nervous I became. One of the most helpful things my teacher told me was to speak slowly. When you speak slowly, you have time to think. You don't feel as rushed, and you have time to correct yourself if you make a mistake. I used to rush through my sentences, but now I focus on saying things clearly and slowly. This advice helped me build confidence. I realized that it wasn't about speaking fast, it was about speaking clearly. And another important thing I learned was to practice with people who are patient. My friends were very supportive. They didn't correct me harshly or make fun of me. Instead, they would say, "Good job," or "You're doing great." This kind of positive reinforcement helped me keep going. If you don't have anyone to practice with, look for language exchange groups online. There are so many people out there who want to help you practice. Don't be afraid to reach out. Over time, I started to speak more freely. I learned that making mistakes is part of the process. Everyone makes them. Even native speakers make mistakes, so why should I be afraid of making them? I began to embrace mistakes as part of my learning journey. Each mistake was an opportunity to improve. One thing that helped me a lot was talking to myself in English. I would say simple sentences about my day like, I woke up at 7 a.m., or I'm drinking water. It felt funny at first, but it helped me practice thinking in English. It also helped me build the confidence to speak without waiting for someone else to start the conversation. Now, I want to share something with you. If you are shy, that's okay. Don't be afraid to speak. Every time you speak, you are improving. Even if you make mistakes, it's not the end. Mistakes are a chance to learn, so speak even if it's just a little bit. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. I encourage you to try speaking today. Find a friend, a family member, or even someone online to practice with. Even if you only speak for a few minutes, it will help. And remember, you don't have to be perfect. Just keep speaking, and you will improve little by little. If you want more tips on how to overcome shyness and speak English with confidence, check out my videos on the channel. I have exercises and suggestions that helped me, and I believe they can help you too. Now, I want to talk about the power of reading and how it helped me improve my English. When I first started learning, I didn't realize how much reading could help me, but soon I realized that reading was one of the best ways to grow my vocabulary and improve my speaking skills. At first, I found reading in English to be difficult. The words were unfamiliar, and sometimes the sentences didn't make sense. I wanted to give up many times because I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere, but I knew that if I wanted to speak better, I needed to build my vocabulary, and the best way to do that was through reading. I started with simple books, ones that were meant for beginners. They had basic sentences and easy words. At first, it felt slow. I would stop every few minutes to look up a word, but over time, I noticed that I was recognizing more and more words. The words that seemed difficult at first started to feel familiar. I wasn't just reading, I was learning. Reading helped me in many ways. First, it introduced me to new vocabulary. Every time I read, I came across words I didn't know. I would write them down and look them up. Then I would try to use them in my own sentences. The more I read, the more words I added to my vocabulary. It was like building my own personal dictionary. The second thing reading helped me with was sentence structure. As I read, I saw how sentences were formed in English. I could see how the subject, verb, and object were arranged. I began to understand how to connect ideas together. This helped me when I tried to speak. I could form sentences more easily because I had seen how it was done in books. But reading wasn't just about words and grammar. It also helped me understand how English is used in real-life situations. I read books that were simple but told stories. These stories had characters who spoke like people in real life. I learned how people express emotions, ask questions, and tell stories. Reading these books helped me learn how to use English in a natural way, just like the characters in the books did. I also began to read aloud. This was an important step in improving my speaking. When I read aloud, I practiced my pronunciation. I could hear how words should sound. At first, it was difficult, but over time, I got better. I would repeat sentences that were difficult to pronounce, and this helped me speak more clearly. Another thing I did was to read children's books. They are perfect for beginners because the language is simple and the stories are interesting. The pictures helped me understand the story better, and the words were easy to follow. I also read short stories and articles online. There are many websites with simple stories in English, and they were great for learning new words and phrases. One of the best parts about reading is that you can do it anywhere. You don't need special equipment, and you don't need a classroom. You can read a book, a magazine, or even a website. I would read on the bus during my lunch break, or even before bed. Every time I read, I learned something new. But even though reading helped me, I realized that it was important not to get overwhelmed at the beginning. I was trying to read too much at once. I would get frustrated when I didn't understand everything, but I learned that it was okay to read slowly. I didn't have to rush through the pages. Instead, I took my time to understand the words and phrases, and over time, reading became easier. Reading also gave me something important: motivation. Every time I finished a book or an article, I felt a sense of achievement. It reminded me that I was improving. It wasn't just about learning new words, it was about seeing my progress. The more I read, the more I wanted to keep going. It kept me motivated to continue learning. Now, I read every day. It has become a habit. I don't just read to improve my vocabulary, I read because I enjoy it. I enjoy learning new things, and I enjoy seeing how much I've improved. I can now read books, websites, and articles in English without feeling lost. I can understand what people are saying in movies and podcasts. It's amazing to see how far I've come. If you're just starting out, I want to encourage you to read every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. Don't worry if you don't understand everything at first. The important thing is that you keep reading. The more you read, the more you will understand, and the more you understand, the more confident you will feel when speaking. Start with easy books or short stories. Look for books that interest you. If you enjoy reading, you'll want to keep going. You can also find online articles, blogs, or news websites that use simple English. Read what you love, and it will make learning fun. I also recommend using flashcards. Write down new words you come across and keep them with you. Review them every day and try to use them in your sentences. This will help you remember the words and use them when speaking. And remember, reading isn't just about learning words. It's about understanding the culture, the people, and the way English is used every day. As you read, you'll not only learn new vocabulary, but also discover how people think and communicate in English. Now, I want to share one of the most powerful techniques that helped me improve my pronunciation: shadowing. It's a technique that involves listening to a native speaker and repeating what they say, almost like you're their shadow. This method helped me get used to the rhythm of English and improve my speaking in ways that I didn't expect. When I first started learning English, pronunciation was one of my biggest challenges. I could read words and I could write them down, but saying them correctly was difficult. English has a lot of sounds that don't exist in other languages, and I didn't know how to make them properly. I would often mispronounce words, which made me feel self-conscious and nervous. I needed a way to improve quickly, and that's when I discovered the shadowing technique. At first, it seemed strange. I was listening to an English speaker and repeating their words, even when I didn't fully understand everything they were saying. But the more I did it, the more I began to notice improvements in my pronunciation. The shadowing technique works like this. You find a short video, podcast, or audio clip where a native speaker is talking. Then you listen closely to what they say. After hearing a sentence or a few words, repeat exactly what you hear immediately after they say it. Don't wait too long. Try to match their tone, rhythm, and pronunciation as closely as possible. At first, it was challenging. I would try to speak the words, but they didn't sound the same. It felt awkward, and I wasn't sure if I was doing it right. But I kept going, and over time, it started to click. My accent became clearer, and my mouth started to form the words more naturally. It was amazing to see how quickly this technique helped me improve. Shadowing is effective because it teaches you intonation and rhythm in English. How you say something is just as important as what you say. For example, the sentence, "I don't like that," can sound different depending on the tone and emphasis you use. By shadowing, you get to hear how native speakers stress certain words, pause in the right places, and express emotions through their voice. This is something that textbooks often don't teach, but it's so important for speaking naturally. Another great benefit of shadowing is that it helps you with listening. When you listen carefully and repeat what you hear, you're training your brain to recognize words and sounds faster. Over time, this will make you understand English conversations much more easily, and you'll start speaking more fluently. It's like learning a song. At first, the lyrics may be hard to understand, but the more you listen and sing along, the easier it becomes. I used to focus a lot on grammar and vocabulary, but when I started shadowing, I realized that pronunciation and fluency were just as important. Shadowing forced me to focus on how to speak, not just on what I was saying. It made me more aware of my mouth movements and the sounds I was making. The best part about shadowing is that you can practice it anywhere. You don't need a classroom or a teacher. You can do it while walking, cooking, or even when you're relaxing. Whenever I hear something interesting, I pause it, repeat it, and try to say it as naturally as I can. It's a simple technique, but it has a huge impact on your speaking skills. I recommend starting with short and easy conversations. Look for content that interests you. It could be a short video on YouTube, a podcast, or a simple TV show. Find something that matches your level of English and start practicing. The key is consistency. Practice shadowing every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. When I first started, I would repeat the same sentences over and over. Eventually, I began to notice patterns in how the speakers talked. I could pick up on the rhythm of English and how words connected. This helped me sound more like a native speaker. If you're unsure about how to start shadowing, don't worry. There are many resources available for you on my channel. I have videos designed to help you practice shadowing. You can watch the videos, listen carefully, and repeat what I say. This will help you improve your pronunciation and fluency. Remember, shadowing isn't about speaking perfectly right away. It's about practice. Keep repeating, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. The more you practice, the more confident you will become. Soon, you will notice that speaking English feels easier, and you'll be able to speak more naturally without thinking too much. Now, I want to talk about something that helped me improve my English more than anything else: speaking every day. When I first started learning, I would study English for an hour or so, but then I wouldn't use it again until the next lesson. I didn't realize that to really improve, I had to use English in my daily life, not just in class. At first, I didn't think speaking every day was that important. I thought I needed to know a lot of grammar rules or memorize long lists of words before I could start using English. But I quickly learned that speaking is the most effective way to improve your skills. If you want to get better, you need to use English in real situations. I started by speaking just a few sentences each day. I didn't worry about making mistakes or sounding perfect. I would talk about simple things, like what I was doing that day, what I ate, or what I wanted to do. The first few times, it felt awkward. I didn't know if I was saying everything correctly. But as I kept practicing, it got easier. One of the best things I did was talking to myself. At first, I felt a little strange, but I would describe what I was doing in English, even if it was just something simple like, I'm eating breakfast or I'm walking to the store. These small sentences helped me practice using English naturally. I didn't wait for a perfect moment or a perfect sentence. I just started speaking. I also began speaking with my friends and family. At first, I was shy. I didn't want them to correct me or point out my mistakes, but I realized that speaking with others was the best way to practice. When I used English in conversations, I didn't have to think about every word. It became more natural, and I started to feel more comfortable. It wasn't always easy. Some days I felt frustrated because I couldn't find the right words or because my grammar wasn't perfect. But every time I spoke, I learned something new. I made mistakes, but I didn't let them stop me. Instead, I used them to improve. The more I spoke, the more I started to sound like I belonged in the conversation. One thing I did was to try speaking in English whenever I could. Even if I didn't know everything, I still tried to use what I had learned. If I went to a store, I would try to speak English with the shopkeeper. If I met someone new, I would introduce myself in English. Sometimes I would speak in short sentences, and sometimes I would ask for help if I didn't know how to say something. But speaking every day helped me build my confidence and fluency. The key to improving is consistency. I made sure to speak a little bit every day, even on days when I didn't feel like it. I would still try to say a few sentences. It didn't matter if I wasn't perfect. It just mattered that I kept going. Slowly, I could see the difference. The more I spoke, the more comfortable I became. Daily practice also helped me learn how to think in English. In the beginning, I would translate everything from my language into English, but over time, I started to think directly in English. When I saw something, I would think about it in English without translating. This made speaking faster and more natural. It felt like English was becoming part of my daily thoughts. I also started to use English while doing everyday activities. I would listen to English music while walking, watch English movies or shows while resting, and read articles in English whenever I had free time. These activities helped me hear how native speakers use English and gave me ideas for what to say next time. The more I used English, the more I realized that I didn't need to know everything to speak. I just needed to practice and keep learning. Even if I didn't know a word, I would try to describe it or use another word instead. The important thing was to keep talking and to not be afraid to make mistakes. If you want to improve your speaking, I suggest you start using English every day. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Even if you just speak for a few minutes a day, it will make a big difference. You can practice with a friend, a teacher, or even by yourself. The key is to make speaking a daily habit. Another way to practice is to set small speaking goals. For example, you could set a goal to speak for 5 minutes in English every day. The next week, try to speak for 10 minutes. Every time you reach a goal, you will feel proud of your progress. This will motivate you to keep practicing. Remember, the more you speak, the easier it will become. It might feel difficult at first, but soon it will feel like second nature. The best way to learn a language is to use it as much as possible. I want to talk about something that was really hard for me at the beginning of my English learning journey: making mistakes. At first, I was terrified of them. Every time I made a mistake, I felt embarrassed, and I thought I was failing. But over time, I learned that making mistakes is not only normal, but also an important part of the process. When I first started speaking English, I was so afraid of saying the wrong thing. I was worried that people would laugh at me or think I wasn't good enough. I spent so much time focusing on avoiding mistakes that I stopped having fun with learning. I was too focused on being perfect, but I soon realized that this fear was holding me back. I was so scared of being wrong that I wasn't allowing myself to speak freely. Then, my teacher told me something that completely changed my mindset. Mistakes are not the enemy. They are your teachers. This really stuck with me. I realized that every mistake I made was an opportunity to improve. The key was not to be afraid of mistakes, but to learn from them. As soon as I started seeing mistakes in a different way, I stopped fearing them. I started speaking more openly. I would speak even if I wasn't sure of every word. And guess what? People understood me. Even when I made mistakes, they still listened to what I was saying. Sometimes they would help me by correcting me gently, and that was how I learned. The more I made mistakes, the more I realized that they weren't the end of the world. They were just steps toward improvement. For example, I remember when I first tried to talk about the weather. It seemed like a simple topic, right? But when I tried, I mixed up the words. I said, "It's raining today, too much," instead of, "It's raining a lot today." My friend didn't laugh at me. Instead, they said, "You could say it this way: it's raining a lot today." And that was it. I didn't feel embarrassed. I just learned the correct way to say it and moved on. Now, whenever I make a mistake, I try not to stress over it. Instead, I focus on how to fix it. If I use the wrong word or make a grammatical error, I don't feel bad about it. I just think, okay, now I know how to say it better next time. And the more I speak, the fewer mistakes I make. Here's something that really helped me. I began to record myself speaking. It was a little strange at first, but I would record myself saying simple sentences, and then I would listen to the recording. I would often hear mistakes I didn't notice while I was speaking. Then I would make a note of what I needed to fix and try again. Over time, my recordings sounded better, and I could hear the improvement. It's important to remember that everyone makes mistakes. Native speakers make mistakes too. I realized that my fear of mistakes was unnecessary. Everyone starts as a beginner, and mistakes are how we learn. Think about when you were learning to walk as a child. You fell down, of course. But did that stop you from trying again? No, you kept going until you learned to walk. Learning a language is the same. You need to try again and again, and with each try, you will get better. Another key lesson I learned was not to be too hard on myself. There were days when I felt like I wasn't improving fast enough. I would get frustrated and want to give up. But I learned that progress takes time. Every little improvement counts, even when you don't see big changes. Remember that you're getting better with every practice session. One of the best ways to face mistakes is to accept them instead of running away from them. Embrace them. If I say something wrong, I remind myself that I'm learning, not failing. Mistakes don't define me, they just show me where I need to improve. So I focus on fixing my mistakes and trying again. Now, when I speak English, I don't worry about being perfect. I just focus on communication. If I say something wrong, I correct myself and move on. It's much more enjoyable to speak this way. I feel confident because I know that making mistakes is just part of learning. I want to encourage you to do the same. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't let them stop you from speaking. Every time you make a mistake, you are one step closer to speaking more fluently. So speak, make mistakes, and learn from them. Remember, no one is perfect, and that's okay. What matters is that you keep trying. And don't forget, practice makes progress. The more you practice, the fewer mistakes you'll make, and the better you'll get. So keep speaking, keep learning, and don't be afraid of making mistakes. They are your teachers, helping you improve every day. Now, I want to talk about something that can happen to every learner: doubts. When you're learning something new, it's easy to feel unsure about your progress. I remember the times when I wondered, am I ever going to get better? Or, why is this taking so long? At some points in my journey, I felt like giving up because the progress didn't always feel fast enough. But over time, I learned that doubt is normal, and the key is to keep pushing forward. In the beginning, I would compare myself to others. I would see people speaking English so fluently and confidently, and it made me feel like I was falling behind. I thought, why can't I speak like them? But what I didn't realize at the time was that everyone has their own journey. Everyone improves at their own pace. Some people take a little longer, some a little less. The important thing is not to compare yourself to others, but to focus on your own growth. I also doubted whether my efforts were enough. I was putting in time to study, practice speaking and listening, but I wasn't seeing instant results. It felt frustrating, but I reminded myself that learning a language isn't a race. It's a marathon. The more I kept practicing, even on days when it felt hard, the more I saw improvement. Progress doesn't always show up right away, but when you look back after a few months, or even a year, you realize how far you've come. One thing that really helped me during these moments of doubt was setting small, achievable goals. For example, I set a goal to speak for 5 minutes a day in English, even if it was just talking to myself. It didn't matter if I made mistakes. The important part was that I was using the language every day. Once I achieved that goal, I set a new one, like listening to a short podcast in English every day. These small steps helped me stay focused, and seeing myself reach my goals made me feel proud and motivated to keep going. Another important part of staying motivated is to celebrate your small wins. Learning English can sometimes feel like a long road, and it's easy to get discouraged when you're focused on what you don't know. But every little success is a reason to celebrate. Maybe you remembered a word you learned yesterday. Maybe you spoke a full sentence without pausing. Maybe you understood an entire conversation. These small victories add up, and every one of them is a sign that you are improving. I also learned that it's okay to take breaks. There were days when I felt exhausted from studying or practicing. I would feel like I wasn't getting anything out of it, and I'd get frustrated. During these times, I would remind myself that it's important to rest and recharge. You can't learn if you're too tired or burned out, so I gave myself permission to take breaks. When I came back, I felt more refreshed and ready to continue. Don't push yourself too hard. Give yourself time to relax and then come back stronger. One of the best ways to stay motivated is to surround yourself with support. I was lucky to have friends and a teacher who encouraged me every step of the way. They celebrated my progress, no matter how small, and always reminded me that I was doing great. It's important to have people around you who believe in you and your ability to succeed. If you don't have anyone in person, you can find support online. There are many communities of English learners who share the same struggles and goals as you. Connecting with others who are on the same journey can give you the encouragement you need to keep going. Lastly, I realized that motivation comes from within. I had to remind myself why I started. The reason I wanted to learn English was not to be perfect, but to be able to speak confidently, connect with people from all over the world, and open doors to new opportunities. Whenever I felt like giving up, I would think about these goals, and they would push me to keep practicing. It's important to remember your why, the reason you're learning in the first place. This will help you stay focused and motivated. So, if you ever feel doubtful or frustrated, remember this: you're not alone. Everyone has moments of doubt, but you don't have to let them stop you. Keep going and keep celebrating your progress, no matter how small. You're learning, and every step forward counts. Believe in yourself, because I believe in you. We've talked a lot about the struggles and challenges that come with learning English, and we've also covered the techniques and strategies that helped me along the way. But now, I want to take a moment to reflect on my journey and look ahead at what's next. When I think back to where I started, I'm amazed at how far I've come. At the beginning, English felt like a huge mountain, and I had no idea how I would ever get to the top. I remember feeling frustrated, unsure, and doubtful. I had so many questions. Am I doing this right? Why isn't this getting easier? But over time, things started to fall into place. I started using English every day, practicing consistently, and learning from my mistakes. Slowly, I began to speak more confidently, understand better, and express myself with less hesitation. Looking back, I can see that the journey wasn't just about learning a language, it was about building confidence, overcoming the fear of speaking, and facing challenges head-on. Learning English helped me become more open-minded and patient with myself. It taught me that learning is not a race, and that it's okay to take your time. Every mistake, every challenge was an opportunity to grow. The key was to keep going, no matter how tough it seemed at the moment. Now, when I speak English, I feel like I'm having a normal conversation. It's not perfect, but I've come a long way. I've built the skills I need to communicate, share my thoughts, and connect with people. It's amazing to see how this new skill has opened up opportunities for me, whether it's meeting new people, traveling, or learning about different cultures. Learning English has enriched my life in so many ways, but the journey doesn't end here. Learning a language is a lifelong process. Even though I'm much better than when I started, there's always room to improve. There are still new words to learn, new grammar rules to understand, and new ways to express myself. English is a language with so much depth, and I'll continue learning every day. The key is to never stop growing, never stop learning. So what lies ahead for me and for you? I think the next step in this journey is to embrace the next level of fluency. Now that I can speak more confidently, I want to focus on improving my fluency. This means speaking faster, understanding different accents, and learning to express myself even more clearly. It's about moving from knowing English to using it like a native speaker. I know it will take time, but I'm excited for the next stage of my journey. For you, the next step might be different. Maybe you're just starting out, and your goal is to speak confidently in simple conversations. Or maybe you've been learning for a while and now you want to work on fluency, grammar, or writing skills. Whatever your goal is, remember this: don't stop. Keep practicing, keep learning, and keep moving forward. Remember that learning English isn't just about learning words or grammar rules. It's about using what you've learned in the real world. It's about having conversations, making connections, and expressing yourself. You've already come so far, and the best part is that you can keep going. Each day is an opportunity to improve and get better. I want to remind you of one important thing. You're not alone in this journey. We all face struggles, and we all make mistakes. But with every mistake, we get better. Keep practicing, stay patient, and keep pushing yourself to speak, listen, and learn. The more you practice, the more confident you will become, and before you know it, you'll be speaking English without even thinking about it. If you're ever feeling discouraged or unsure of where you are in your learning, just remember that the journey is the reward. Every word you learn, every sentence you speak is a step forward, and those steps will take you to places you never imagined. So, I want to leave you with this. Keep going, keep practicing every day. Watch videos, read books, listen to podcasts, and most importantly, speak. Embrace the journey because you're getting better every day, and the future holds so many exciting opportunities for you. Thank you so much for listening to my story and for being a part of this journey. I hope that sharing my experience has inspired you to continue learning and speaking English. You can do this. Keep believing in yourself and never stop moving forward. See you soon. Bye for now.